This is Mike Anderson. It's going to share something helpful to all of you.
I'm going to wave my magic wand, and none of you are unemployed. Now, let me explain how that works. Um, I learned something a few years back. I worked with a fellow, he had a PhD in experimental psychology. He was making great progress in the research industry, and we worked in Southern California. He decided he wanted to go get an MBA from University of Southern California. And one of the things that I learned from working with Robert was as he graduated, he says a key takeaway for him was that somebody with an MBA from USC is never unemployed because one of the things that they learn to do is how to start a business. And so you start your own business. Maybe you keep it running in the background. Maybe you'll just ignore it for a long time, but it's your business, which means it's always on your resume. Um, So here's the thing. If you want to start an LLC, a limited liability company, the rules differ from state to state. I started mine in Ohio when I lived there. It took a deposit into a bank, happened to be my regular bank, and I told them I wanted to start a business account, and they said terrific. And I also, wrote a second check uh, for $50 to get a business license, which they went ahead and kindly sent to the county or state, or yeah, I think it was the state for me. Next thing I know, I'm in business. I have an LLC. Now I'm looking at it and I'm going, it might be time to bring it up to an S corp type of level. That's a little tiny bit more work, but it means a different level of profitability. It means a different level of taxation, a better level of taxation, usually, and a little bit more reporting requirement. But it also means that you can bring in friends, family members, or whomever as part of the board of directors. And that means that you can offset some expenses, which means you really don't have to run your S Corp as, you don't want to run it as a loss too often. Otherwise, the IRS will chase you down, but you don't have to run it real profitable either because you can use the money for different things. So um, when I say, with my little red magic wand pen, you're no longer unemployed. I hope you understand. Go to your bank, talk to your banker, and say, how do I start an LLC or how do I start an S corp? The S corp again, little tiny bit more effort, but might be worth it. Um, I think I've just solved everybody's unemployment problem. Steve,
Okay. Um, Questions? Anybody? Okay, Jason, I can't hear you,
Jason's
Jason.
already started working on his LLC.
Yeah, I'm raking in the doughboy already. Um, what does S Corp stand for?
I honestly don't know.
Yeah,
They
But
that
there's
they
S
have
I've heard that
corp and
different.
there's
phrase.
C corp and there's LLCs and then there's sole proprietorship. And I don't, S corp, C corp, I don't know the difference.
Hmm.
I know that I talked to an attorney back when I was in Ohio, and we were eating lunch together right after I'd been laid off. No, actually, it was before I was laid off. And he said, Mike, you need to start a company. And he told me just how easy it was to start an LLC. Now, again, this is Utah. Rules may be a little bit different, but find an attorney that you know and ask them, or go to your bank and find out. And
Okay.
look on YouTube. You can see the difference between LLCs and S corps and C corps on YouTube.
So one thing I want to say just in place about that, and maybe this is something we can talk about more in future weeks. Um, the one thing I would say is you're going to see a lot of people do LLCs and they don't have any of the power that the S or the C corp does. So, the S and C corp have the limited liability feature, but with much more for taxes. And it's legal. It's legal, the
Mhm.
taxes and how you pay yourself and things like that. So if you're consulting for anybody or somebody like Stacy, if she's still here, Stacy says, they've asked her to consult. that's something that, she may want to look up and set that up, because how you pay yourself, um, you can, well, there's a lot of features. I'm not going to get into the accounting part of it, but so again, this is something I think we all should take a look at. So, Mike, thank you for talk about waving a magic wand and everybody's not no longer unemployed. The next question is, what are the next steps in that? So it may be something we do in a future one-on-one, or not one-on-one, in a group job team, for those who are interested, to help put more money in your pocket when people say, "Hey, can you help me on a project, or can you do this, or do you have an idea that you want to take and take to the next level?"
The
Uh,
other thing that I'll add is kind of a dovetail into some things that folks have already said about the change in energy. When you've got your own organization or your own company, LLC, S Corp, whatever you're going to use, when you've got one of those, now your interviews become two-way streets. Because not only are you trying to figure out, okay, do these people want to hire me? You're also figuring out, do I want them as a client? And so, at one point, I was in a job search. I had, it was after the 9/11 attacks, and my job in the travel industry just evaporated like that. Um, and I was running my own little business, um, and trying to get clients at the same time as I was looking for a job. So I had a couple of research companies that came down as clients, and we were doing great. And had another organization that I was doing some work with, and then I was interviewing with a research company. And what was interesting and fun about this was when I got interviewed, they decided that they wanted to hire me, and they made me an offer. And I went back with that and I said, I really appreciate the offer. I would love to work with you. But I also just got one offer from somebody else to buy my company. And another client is telling me that they want to make an offer. And so I have asked them to speed things up a little bit so that I know what my options are. Um, I said, but as soon as I know what's what, I'll come back to you. So the company that one of the organizations made me an offer, and I thought about it. I thought really hard about it. Something didn't feel right, and I couldn't put my finger on it. Another one offered me a tidy sum for 51% ownership, and I liked the guy, but I just didn't want him as a boss, and I would have to stay with the company for at least a year. Um, and then the other organization, they just about doubled their offer for me, and I went with them. Now, afterwards, the first company that I mentioned that made an offer where it just didn't quite feel right, about 2 weeks afterward, their CFO was indicted for fraud. So pay attention to those feelings, folks. That's all I've got.
all right, Mike, thank you for sharing that. I'm going to end this recording, but I think it's a conversation for those, I think, who might be afraid. Maybe you can help them not be so afraid of that. Okay. This is Mike Anderson, waving his magic wand so you're no longer unemployed.
Pilot G2.